Action it is, everybody. Welcome to the live stream action filmmaking with Fran Strine, a brand new concept. So excited about this. I'm Peter Clarke, Red TV. And that good looking fellow right over there is Fran Strine, film director, Power Chord Films. How are you, my friend?
If I was doing any better, it'd be a crime.
You'd be arrested.
Really well, yeah.
Yeah, you'd be arrested right now. That's fantastic. I haven't talked to you in a while, my friend. Everything okay with you? Everything good? Family? More importantly, just health, safety, all that stuff. Everything okay?
Yeah, man. I lost my beloved dog Fang, but I picked up this fella.
Oh, right. Yes, right. Is this Bolt?
This is Bolt, man.
Oh,
yeah,
fan.
If you open the door, he will bolt and disappear. So I had to buy literally a tracking device for him. So it's like
literally that's a
yeah, made by a company called Hound, Huan, something.
Okay.
Like that. It's ingenious. Yeah, it's just an app, and
it will ring you up if he's out of like a certain distance or something like that. It'll ring you. Yeah. Never heard of that. That's fantastic. Yeah, he's a good looking fellow right there. Seems like he is. He doesn't seem like the bolting kind, just so you know. He looks like he's so happy there that he wouldn't bother.
No, he is, but I always wonder, I was like, well, if you get out, where are you gonna go? Like where? It's like you've got it made here, man. You're sitting on a nice couch, you got food, toys.
Right. I mean, we're gonna go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Well, there you go. Well, that's good to know. I know it was a rescue dog as well. So congratulations. Great call on that. Hey, let's talk about a little bit what you've been up to. I haven't talked to you since, well, we did the show, when you got back from Zurich and so on, and we talked about that experience. What's been, generally speaking, between that last conversation and now, and of course, before we bring on our special guest to talk about today.
Yeah. So, got a couple of projects in the works, so we're building up a slate that we'll probably announce after the new year or shortly thereafter.
Good.
So I've been kind of looking into staffing those positions. Yeah. And Scott will definitely be involved, who we're going to bring on in a minute. I won't do a movie without him.
Wow.
So, wow. So this is a big one. This is a huge project that we're going to undertake here. And it's going to be definitely the biggest one of my career.
What? Wow. Okay.
Better than anything I did with, even as much as I love Dolly Parton, this may be bigger. Yeah.
Come on. Well, listen, I thought, Hired Gun and of course Ray's movies, it's still yet to really formally find its way into our living rooms and our streaming services and our theaters and so on, just because of what's happened this year.
But that movie's going to come out in the spring, right around the release of Ghostbusters Afterlife, from what I'm understanding.
Okay, got it. And just so everyone who might be tuning in and listening for the first time about that, I mean, you got just for that movie, you got the Sony deal as well, correct?
Yeah. Yep. Very proud and happy. I went for myself and everybody involved in the movie, and for Ray and our partner Ola. So
fantastic. That's great. You get distribution like that, my friend. That's rock and roll stuff. That's awesome, but I'm happy for you. Super happy for you. All right, let's dig into why we're here today. We're here to talk about, I know that you and I have revisited the Rehired and the concept of a hired gun, and talked to some musicians and so on. And I know your passion is filmmaking. And I know every time we talk about it, you always talk about the team. You always talk about the idea that it's not just me, and it's nowhere near just me. I'm part of this amazing collaborative experience. And you said, you wanted to start bringing together some people that you work with and so on. Why is that important to you? Why is it important to build a great team around a film? I think I know the answer, but
look, you're only as good as your team. So if you surround yourself with the people as good or better than you, it's going to show up in the final product on the screen. And without my team, I'm nothing, because I don't know how to do a lot of this stuff. And I rely on these people and their expertise and their professionalism. And I'm probably the least professional person on the set. Just to be honest with you. Not in a way that I don't know what I'm doing, but I like to have fun and keep the set loose and have a good time.
Well, that's part of your job, though. I mean, that's not a light job. I mean, to keep the tone you set. I'm sure you set the tone in most
Mhm.
days. So they're going to pick up the vibe and the energy from you and so on. We're going to bring on, someone that's, like you said, such a key role. I know for me as a person who just creates videos, certainly not movies, but videos and so on, even what we're doing right now,
Mhm.
audio is so important. I've always talked about it when I'm talking to people about making videos or any kind of digital content. Audio is everything. Why is audio and sound so important just to you as a filmmaker?
Yeah.
Again, I know it
Well,
sounds like a
I, I,
painful and
I
obvious.
learned that valuable lesson on Hired Gun. I hired somebody that was not very experienced or doesn't have the right equipment to follow me around one day to do the production sound mix. And it was garbage. Like none of it was salvageable.
Wow.
So there we spent thousands of dollars. I mean, it was out of town too. So we paid for travel for the crew. And I was just like, you know what? Let me just hire somebody from Oklahoma. That's where we're at in Tulsa, in
Right.
a giant arena filming this key scene. And the audio was gone. There was no way to salvage it. And I learned my lesson then. So
Wow.
now I bring my guy with me, Thomas Corcoran, and I'm sure Scott and I can talk about him a little bit. But
Yeah.
I won't do a movie without him either. I learned a very valuable lesson. And the reason I have Scott mix my movies is because I think he's one of the best. And we do it at the best facilities. We did a smaller mix at Sony, then two of the pictures at Skywalker. And to
Right.
me, especially if it's a music doc, it must sound as good as it looks. You know,
Yeah.
uh,
Right.
yeah. And
Especially music.
he does a
Wow.
fan. He hears things I don't hear because my ears aren't tuned for that. So he
Right.
picks up on stuff. I'm like, really? You heard a zipper thing going? I didn't even notice that. Yeah.
I totally relate to that. That's why I'm so excited about today, because I'm an audio guy, like in the sense of I'm super, super sensitive to sounds and bumps and all that. So when I listen to a video and I go, oh, and my
Yeah.
spouse who's watching it with me or something go, I don't know what you're talking about.
And I'll tell you what, we'll talk about this too. Like there are times early on in Hired Gun where I didn't even have a guy. So
Hmm.
I do it myself. And one of the guys was Derek St. Holmes from Ted Nugent. And the
Okay.
audio sounds like garbage. I mean, I just had like a Sennheiser mic pinned onto him. I didn't know what I'm doing with levels. It sounded like shit. And Scott rescued the day. He's like, I'll
Wow.
this, because I was
Well,
terrible.
I,
So you'll
I,
know when my audio, or he can. He's like, this wasn't Thomas. This was somebody, I was like, yeah, it was me.
yeah, there's a signature to it. You're absolutely right. I mean, that's the whole idea of great producing.
Continuity is important to me as well. So that's why I kind of like to use the same guy.
Right,
So
right. Okay, super makes a lot of sense. Well, listen, we're talking about, and we keep referring to this guy Scott, and I think if you anyone who's tuning in, they might have seen, obviously our promo on it. We're going to introduce Scott R. Lewis, who is the person that I don't know. I got to ask him what I call him. I know recording, mix engineer, sound editor. I don't know. I got all kinds of titles for him. I'm not sure exactly. He's the sound guy is basically what we're going to do. But let's see if we can bring him in. Scott Lewis in Hollywood, California. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Oh man, you're looking pretty late. You look like you're really, really stressed out there.
I just stay inside. Nothing can hurt me in here.
Fantastic. Well, listen, we are super pumped to have you here today because again, Fran is so passionate about his movie making, but he is so passionate about his team and so on. So let's just jump right into it. Maybe please just introduce yourself to our audience right now, a little bit about yourself, just a little bit of your Cole's Notes elevator thing of how you got to literally sitting right next to Fran right here on this screen. Give us a little background about what you do and your experience and so on.
Yeah. So the way Fran and I met each other was at the time I was living up in the Bay Area and working at Skywalker Sound. And just to kind of explain what, you were talking about titles, a re-recording mixer, like what is that even? What does that mean?
Re-recording, exactly. Re-recording.
And for a film, it's really basically it's just taking all the recordings that go into a film and putting them together and blending them. So like for a record, you're mixing a record, you have all those tracks of drums and guitars. You balance those down to 2 tracks for stereo and kind of blend the frequencies. With a film, you have hundreds of tracks. So that might be your score, all your production tracks, all your sound effects. You take all those elements and balance them together. In theatrical, we have a few more channels to work with than stereo, but ultimately you got to bake it down to 2 tracks as well. So it's the person who takes all those recordings and re-records them down to a smaller format.
Got it.
So
how long are you doing this? What's a little bit of background about where'd you get to this point? You don't just wake up one day and playing with some recorders that I have here in my desk and then start working with Fran. Just give us a little background on how you got to this point.
Sure. Well, I started out, I wanted to be a recording engineer. I wanted to be that guy behind the glass, working with the musicians, making records that just looked like the coolest thing ever.
Sure.
And so I actually went to school to learn that. I went to a trade school. And I did that for a few years after school. Did some reggae music, some hip hop music, kind of music I was into, some jazz, a few different records. And after meeting kind of some of the guys who had been doing that their life and seeing how grizzled they were and the hours they were working, I was like, this is cool, but maybe there's something I can do that can kind of be more of a better lifestyle fit for me. And I was also working in post-production at the time on some smaller things. And eventually I made my way into Skywalker Ranch. I had a connection there and started in the machine room. And that's exactly what it sounds like. It's a machine room. I worked my way up to be able to be in the room with the filmmakers. And then eventually, after years of doing that, I got to meet Fran and work on his films.
Fantastic. Well, Fran, take it from there. Like, how did you guys end up first meeting, and what caught your attention about Scott and his skills?
Well, when I went to do Hired Gun, I lived in the Bay Area as well, in Marin County. And we're getting ready to probably start the sound mix discussion, which I knew nothing about, by the way. And I knew of Skywalker Ranch, and I knew it was only about 5 or 6 miles from where I live. So I sent in an email. You can't just call Skywalker Ranch, by the way. There's just info at Skywalker Ranch, right?
Right.
So I write in, I was like, hey, I'm a local filmmaker. I'm here in Marin County. I have this cool music doc I did. Just want to see if there's a chance of having a discussion. Sent it in, and John Nolan, I guess, is the guy that makes the decisions there, the scheduling. And he wrote me back and was like, do you have a sizzle reel? And at the time we did. And I sent it back to him. And 10 minutes later, I got a return email. Wow. And he goes, we must mix this movie. This is fantastic. Can we submit a bid? Wow. And that's the first time I've ever heard that word, submit a bid, because usually it's, what is your budget?
Right. What is your budget?
Affordable for us to go there. And originally a guy named Pete Horn, I think is his name, was going to tackle
Pete Horner. Yeah.
Yeah. Horner. And he did 20 Feet from Stardom, but he got called on another job and they introduced me to Scott. And I'm like, well, shit, man, I want the guy that did 20, he just won an Oscar and all, but like, who's this Scott guy,
Right.
Scott talked to him and I was just like, you know what, this guy's, he knows what time it is. And I looked at his resume and I'm like, wow, he's worked on some really big, impressive stuff. And then when I met him, we worked together for first few days, I was so comfortable and like, he was so chill and cool and explained everything to me. Cause again, I had no idea what I was doing. I just showed up to this magical, mystical place and thrust into this thing. And, he gave me some knowledge and things to listen to that I would never listen. But one of the funniest things was there's a scene with Kiss in there where they're doing a live performance of Detroit Rock City.
Yeah.
There's some pyro that goes off and it wasn't loud enough on the recording that they sent. So Scott, had their design person create something for us. And then we go into the Stag Theater, and I'll let Scott describe what the Stag Theater is, but it's incredible. And once you hear your movie there, you're bummed out because it's never going to sound that good again.
Never.
We're watching the playback of this, and the explosion happened. And I remember telling him in the previous mix, I was like, "Yes, turn up a little bit louder," And after I heard that explosion, we all were jarred. I probably had PTSD. So loud, but yeah, maybe Scott, talk about the Stag Theater, what that thing is.
Sure. I mean, the power, you were feeling the full power of the subwoofers in that room. Yeah. Fran was like, yeah, make it feel like you're at the concert. And this room is the room where the THX standard for theaters was developed and implemented in this particular theater. So, and they also keep it up to, it's impeccable.
Right.
One of the best sounding theaters in the world, in my opinion. And so, we kind of hit it hard. And ripped everyone's face off. It was a working screening, so it's like, well, let's see what happens here.
Let's see what happens.
And I think that was the moment when Fran realized like how loud we can make things, and maybe sometimes it's too loud.
Yeah. Coming from the rock world, I like things loud anyway.
Right.
And,
well, yeah.
I remember doing the thing with when the Derek St. Holmes, just what the doctor ordered, and I couldn't. I was like, man, can you make Phil Lex's guitar solo a little louder? Push it, man. I want to feel the strings ripping across my face. And then of course Scott's always right. He goes, well, maybe that's and you listen back to it, and that's why he does what he does. That's
right. Scott, let me ask you that question about how when you first met each other, and Fran was talking to you about generally what he wanted to do, and I mean, did you already have a vision for it? Did you understand? I mean, you've been down that road before, but I'm just wondering, were you able to kind of pick up instantly where he wanted to go, and knowing that he didn't probably know as much as you did about sound that way? I mean, did you know that you could work with him and go down that path? How do you make those kinds of decisions when you're approached like that?
Yeah, with a film like Hired Gun, like, even the early cuts were so good, and I could personally relate to it, just because I'm a freelance, technician artist. So I understand that role. So immediately I was like, oh, this is speaking to me. Right. And, it's a music documentary ultimately. So everybody knows what sounds good when it comes to music and doesn't sound good. So this was a little less of kind of a fine line of figuring out what it should sound like, whereas like, let's just make this thing sound great and honor all of these musicians and all the work that they've done. So he also had great recordings to start with. So that's one of the biggest kind of technical hurdles with a film like that. With a documentary, you can't go re-record dialogue. It's you get it on the day, like he was saying, you either get it on the day or you don't get it.
Right. Right.
So Thomas is great, and his recordings were really good, and the in-studio recordings were really good. So it was just really honoring all those guys in that film, like the music they've put out that we've all rocked out to for so long.
What's interesting, interesting, you just said something. I just want to catch it before it leaves my mind. You just said everyone knows what sounds good when it comes to music, and you know what? I, as a musician, I would challenge that, and I know that to be true too, is because live sound and recorded sound, and then I'm thinking for movie, which I don't understand the complexities of that. Those are all different. Like I'm thinking that a person that does live concerts, for example, that sits behind the main board, is thinking much differently than maybe how you're approaching it. Would that kind of be true?
To some degree, if it comes to a creative kind of choice, but ultimately we're looking for hi-fi, right? We're looking for clarity in the highs, solid lows, when it comes to like technical sound, it's kind of agreed upon if something sounds good or sounds okay. Like if it doesn't pull your ear as like, that sounds bad, then it's okay, for a record, because you can tell something that's done professionally versus something that's amateur, right? Like that's kind of the point I would make to that, is that we listen to so much media today, we consume so much media, that if something isn't up to par, and also this year in particular, all the media we've been consuming has been done at home or via Skype or Zoom, and we've almost become accustomed to this over this year. When we go back to everybody going into studios and shooting productions, we're going to remember what things sound from proper microphones and all that. But it's interesting how our brain will quickly adapt to be like, this is what things sound like now.
You are so absolutely right about that. And I'm a little worried about that too, is that the idea that of what we're getting accustomed to when production quality, when it comes to television, so on, I don't think it will trickle into movies, but you're absolutely right. Fran, like I said, it's interesting how you go about this process of working with Scott. Try to describe, if you can, as the director, and a person who has the vision for the film, what kinds of things do you and Scott talk about, maybe before the film actually even gets going, kind of thing, and maybe during that process? What kind of things are you bantering with him about, or do you just say, here's the files, rock and roll, go do your thing?
Yeah, I kind of let him just do a first pass of it, then he'll ask me to sit with him and kind of go over and take notes or whatnot. And my notes are just so shitty, what I mean? Because he's really got the ear. I'm like, well, maybe there's a little bit of dialogue up here. And I remember in the Ray Parker Jr. movie, when we're in Detroit and he's walking down the street, and I wanted to hear some, like, some of that winter air sound. So I think some of that air just pumped it up a little bit. But he also does fantastic production design, because there's some stuff in there in the riots era, and the tanks going down the street, buildings falling apart, gunfire, and he put it all in there. It just sounds so natural. You'd never know, So those are the things, really. I mean, I trust him,
That's a big word right there. Yeah, the trust factor. Scott, can you describe what he means by that? Because again, it's it's design, sound engineering, and science. The design. What is he? What is he?
Well, that's a great example. That's something you came to me kind of early on, Fran, and you're like, "Hey, I have this idea. I think we could use sound to kind of help tell this story here." And you sent me the sequence, and it was very sentimental. Ray is reflecting on, this very traumatic time in his life. So it's adding a feel. So if you say design, when it comes to filmmaking, you're talking about kind of feeling. Like, what is this going to feel like? Because you remove the sound from a picture and it's flat. It doesn't have an emotional resonance. When you add sound, you can make the hair stand up on your arms or on the back of your neck. You can make people feel happy or not feel like there's any fear or threat. So it's really kind of like you can manipulate emotion with sound design in any direction. Fran has me at his disposal to do that to any kind of scene or, story, really. You can make it feel completely different depending on what is playing there. What's in the background that might not, it's only perceived by the viewer, but not necessarily heard. So we use those tools a lot in filmmaking, that, you just get a feel when somebody watches it one time, they get a feel of the scene or a feel of a room. But ultimately we micro in on these. So everything is engineered for you to feel that way.
Got it. Hey, I just want to throw up a couple quick. I really understand that. That helps me a lot. There you go. Look, Thomas Scott.
What's up, Thomas?
Some rock stars out there, and his work is phenomenal. So there you go. So there you go. And I think someone's sending you a little love. If I got that wrong, I'm pretty sure I got it right there. So there's some love thrown out at you there. So Fran, when as we just talked about with Scott designing, you give him how much rope do you give as a director? Are you just basically saying, here's the scene, here's generally the mood, or do you allow him to decide what he's visually seeing as the mood, or how does that work?
There's several scenes.
He gives me enough to hang myself. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. For Hired Gun, in the Rudy Sarzo section, or the Jason Newsom when he's talking about Cliff dying or whatnot, those are really impactful scenes. And I always tell everybody, when I watch a movie, I want to laugh, I want to cry, I want to feel all those feelings. So I like to do that in my documentaries if the story is there to tell. And the Ray thing was just so tragic and heartbreaking, what happened to him at that young age, that propelled him to get out of Detroit and become what he is now. I thought it was just, it had to be right, And I just remember sending Scott just the scene and him putting it. I don't think I gave him any notes. I'm like, this is perfect. You picked up on what I was looking for. And yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. So God, how do you filter through that? As a design engineer, as a sound person, this. What I'm trying to get at is that there's a distinction between your skills, your skills with your ears, and the knowledge of the board and how to work it, and then there's the creative part of that you have to kind of visualize or audioize, if you will. You have to kind of go, wow, what is that? So it's an extreme creative process. It's not just levels and treble and bass and that kind of stuff. Where does that creativity come from for you? I mean, you don't learn that in trade school. Where does that come from for you?
Yeah, that's it. That's a good question. I guess it just, for me, it comes from applying the human experience to having access to a sound palette. So being able to take emotion, find different sounds and elements, put them together to express that emotion or support that emotion of what the story is. I mean, sometimes it's as simple as a door close, right? You're like, what is it? That door sounds fine, whatever. But you could make it sound aggressive or scary. You could make it sound polite. And really, that's something I just learned by virtue of working on films with with my mentors and people who are kind of masters of the craft. I got to learn from them and watch them do their thing, which is where I got a lot of my training. But I think ultimately it becomes from being a sensitive individual and knowing like the difference of these things, like with the door closed, something that simple. What does the creak sound like? Is it supposed to be scary, or is it a welcoming door creak?
Right.
It could come down to that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, and again, it's a life experience thing as well. I mean, you watch. I'm assuming you watch a lot of films and television and things with audio. Being an engineer like that versus listening to. I'm sure you listen to a lot of music too, but there's something interesting about listening or to audio when you're a visual person. So I know I'm guilty of that all the time. And when I'm sitting watching with my spouse, I don't think she likes watching movies with me because I'm always picking up and saying, that wasn't in sync. That didn't sound right. Oh, that's not, there's no continuity there. And she's like,
no,
just watch the movie.
Yeah. She's like, knock it off.
knock it off already. So Fran, moving forward, even now, currently with some of the projects you said you have, coming down the pipe and so on. So you mentioned earlier that you have something, really big on the plate. Doesn't matter the size of the project. I mean, how do you already know as a director that Scott is the guy? And I mean that sincerely. Like, I'm thinking that if I was a music producer and I wanted to make a jazz album, I would probably go after somebody who's produced a few jazz albums. If I was a rock artist, I would go in that direction. How do you know that Scott is the guy, or someone like Scott is the guy that can tackle the next project that you have?
Right. So filmmaking is one of the toughest things on the planet Earth to do. Just coming up with the idea, getting the funding, producing it. And if you don't have the right people on board and you don't learn from your mistakes the first time, it'll haunt you later. So, Hired Gun was a disaster at the end. And I'm not going to name any names, but those people aren't back. Scott is. He's a professional. He's an A-lister. We work really well together. We have a good time, and he just delivers. There's just no doubt. And he's worked. Look at his resume, man. He's worked on some amazing projects, and I'm proud to have him work on my stuff. Like I can't believe it. Like, I got Scott Lewis. How'd this happen?
That's fantastic. Scott, what do you think of that when you hear that? What do you think of that?
I love Fran. He is a joy to work with, and he's so. Thank you for the kind words, Fran. I really appreciate it.
I mean, yeah.
No, that's fantastic. And speaking of work, let's talk about that. I mean, I know there's a couple of things I want to specifically mention. Something that I'm aware of, which is like House of Cards, for example. I mean, you've worked on that. Talk to us a little bit about some of the projects you worked on, so that people understand the depth and maybe the breadth of the different kinds of projects. That's why I was asking that question. That it sounds like you can bounce from project to project, just based on your experience and your passion for wanting to do it. Talk about some of the things that you were involved with, and maybe maybe even some of the challenges behind a couple of these projects.
Yeah, to speak to your question there, like obviously music documentary, that's a very specific kind of thing, but also I've worked on the gamut from kid shows to horror films, like, and everything in between.
Wow. Okay, so right there. I mean, a kid's show, like Mr. Rod. No, it's not Mr. Rod, but you know what I'm saying, like something like that, and then a horror film.
Yeah,
that's complete. So that's what I'm saying.
Different.
Yeah,
and they're different disciplines, but ultimately it's all sound. At the end of the day, you're dealing with sound and you're telling a story. So once you have the skill set to kind of deal with all of these different things, you can apply it to one in particular thing. And when it comes to re-recording mixers, there's not a guy who like just does music documentaries. It's like there's the top cats who will do the big music documentary and also do the big Steven Spielberg film. It's like we're all sound people. We just want to make movies. So we'll work on the gamut of it. But you specifically asked some things I've worked on. Yeah, House of Cards was a long running show. Mindhunter is something I'm super proud of. It's seems like it would be a procedural show, but that's one of those shows where like every detail is very very dialed in from the picture to the sound. Recently I've done a few Netflix projects lately. got a new kids movie coming out called Finding Ohana. That'll be out in January, I think, and that's it's a kind of a Goonies reboot. So for any fans of the Goonies out there, it's a fun one.
Oh, there's a lot of those out there. There's a lot out there. Let me just jump to some of those right there. Like, and because I don't know the names, and we're not looking for names, we're looking for the parallels. Can you talk to the differences of how Fran and works with you versus maybe some other directors work with you?
Sure. Like, I'm sure his notes are like insane.
Yeah, he is such. Him as a director, he's very detailed. So, like Fran was saying earlier, he'll be like, "Hey, take a swing, and I like it," or "Could you try this?" Where David will be very specific about things he wants and very detailed with it. So, depending on the director, you were saying how much rope you have. Like it very much varies by the filmmakers, how much they want to collaborate, or how much they want to just direct you. Everyone has a different approach with it. But to speak to Fran's point, a lot of directors have their teams that they work with, and they keep working with them on each project, because you develop a shorthand, you develop a language of speaking with each other and working with each other. So Fran and I know we've done a couple films together that we get each other's aesthetic. He knows, like, he could trust me, or he can tell me to change things, and there's no personal feelings hurt. This is all filmmaking. We're just here to make it as good as we can.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's kind of interesting. Like, depending on who you're working with, depends on how much input they want. Sometimes they just want you to turn it up and down. Like, make that louder and that softer. Thank you.
Right. Wow. and you're like,
turn it louder, buddy.
Yeah, turn it louder.
Yes, crank it.
Yeah.
So Fran, what I find interesting in this conversation, and I hope other people are picking up on it, but I sure am, is the idea that you talk so passionately about that your team is so important.
Mm-hmm.
And when I think of it, you think of whether it's a hockey team or a baseball team, or it's always sort of the manager, the coach, there's a vision, and if the pitcher's not doing well, the manager stomps out onto the field and pulls you off the field.
Yeah.
And yet you seem to be really hands off. If I'm picking this up right, that you have enough trust in Scott. Talk to that for us, because it sounds like theoretically the team will pick up on what you're laying down, if you will, in the vibe. And but it doesn't sound like you want to be hands on like that. Like, you're not every sound, not every detail. You just want to give them some creative freedom. Is that sort of what I'm hearing there with Scott and other people on your team?
Like I said, he takes the first swing, and then I'll come in, sit next to him in the chair, and we're listening to on these reference speakers that are just, like he said, the best in the world. And you take down notes, and usually mine are just, this little dialogue, but he's listening for ticks. Like, somebody's talking, they have a little bit of spittle that I don't even notice.
Yeah, I know what he's talking about.
Stuff like that, or like somebody hitting their hand on their lap. I would never, to match this natural sound. And I'm like, well, that's kind of annoying if you're in a theater or trying to really dig in on what this person is saying, and he'll wipe that away. And it's just something I don't notice. I'm not David Fincher. I'm not, I can't perceive that. But mine are, because it's music, I want to hear it, or if there's a sound design I know that it's not there that I think would enhance the scene, I'll send it to Scott and he'll take care of it. And then, there's Julie Houlihan, who's our music supervisor. And on Ray, we had the good fortune of having her come in and do the, what do they call it, Scott? Sound mix, not sound mix, sound editing for the music.
Mm-hmm.
And there's part I remember, and Ray was in the studio with us, and it was during the Leo Sayer thing, and there was a music bed under it. And if you remember, Scott, he hated it. Like, he goes, I can't even listen to this. And
wow.
Yeah, as the director, it didn't bother. I was just like, I think it's perfect,
Yeah, right. Yeah.
We talked back and forth a few times, like, really, you want to we're in the mix now, and you want to change this? So Julie was there, and I gave Julie the task, while Scott's in the middle of remixing this thing, like,
right.
Can you go spend a few hours and see if you can dig something up that will make Ray happy? Because I want Ray to be happy. It's his movie on his legacy. So it's important that he's happy with it, so he feels good about promoting it and just feels good watching it, because he was really bummed out. And lo and behold, man, she found something, and that's something, I guess, Scott, you guys merge all that together in Pro Tools, and she delivers it, and you scoot it in, and that's it,
That's amazing.
You know what I mean? I got to trust her to deliver 4 or 5 comps that we can listen to and really and find something. And I know in some of the really emotionally charged scenes of Ray's film, it took months to find the right piece of music to put in there. I just wasn't happy with any of it. And like I said, it's a feeling, like I said, it's just a blank thing of Ray walking across, there's no sound. And once you put sound to it, it can raise the hairs or make a tear fall off your face. So
yeah,
I wasn't happy until we found that. And
that makes a lot of sense.
Her, I mean, so everybody's all about trying to trust Thomas to deliver me great sound every time, and that's why I fight for him to be able to fly, because people don't want to pay for flights, it's like, or hotels or everything else.
Sure.
And do you really want to chance this over $1,000 or whatever it's going to cost extra?
Right.
And now my team trusts me that are financing these movies or whatnot, my judgment. So it just makes it so much easier when you're working with people you like, that are professionals, and they're going to deliver every time. There's just no room for error when you're doing a documentary.
Wow. I mean, Scott, that's a big testament to you. I wanted to ask you a question about the Ray's movie that Fran was just referring to. Is it different coming at it from a sound perspective when it is a legacy piece about someone like Ray versus, and I don't mean this with any disrespect, a television series or a particular episode of something where, again, you're talking about doors closes and so on. Now we're talking about someone's legacy and a music legacy. Do you approach it differently as a sound engineer?
That's interesting. With Ray, yeah, I mean, there's a lot to live up to there. I mean, this guy's a Grammy award-winning producer, engineer. His records sound amazing. So yeah, there's a lot on the line right there. Like, you got to honor. It's similar to Hired Gun. You have to honor this guy who's a legend. So yeah, and specifically in sound, in music and sound like this.
Right.
So for that, yeah, definitely. With something else, you have to honor it because it's somebody's baby as well. It's not necessarily their life legacy, but it might be their show or the film that they've been trying to make their whole life. So I try and bring that to whatever project I'm working on, knowing that somebody's been, kind of keeping this egg safe to get it on screen. It's like Fran was saying earlier, making a film is one of the hardest things you can do. So yeah, with Ray's film in particular, yeah, big time.
And you would have felt that extra,
Don't drop the ball on this one.
Right. You don't want Ray's sitting there going, wow, that just sucks, doesn't it? I mean, it just,
yeah.
I specifically remember when we've mixed Ray's movie twice now. We did a 45-minute version for Sony. They were doing a 30th or 35th anniversary of the release of Ghostbusters, and they shut down the Sony lot for a weekend and invited 20 or 30,000. It was kind of like Comic-Con, but only for Ghostbusters freaks. And they wanted to do like a 45-minute version of the film. So we were able to cut it down, and we mixed it on the Sony lot. And I remember we had, Ray wrote and recorded a song for Shaka Khan called "You Got the Love."
Right.
And Scott had never heard that song before. And we put it, we're getting ready to mix that scene. He's like, dude, this is amazing. This tune is sick, So if I remember, I think maybe you download and just were jamming on it at home or whatever. But I mean, just the fidelity of that song and just the groove and the mix and the tune itself is just, man, those 70s songs are just so fat and ridiculous. And then, we got to do Stevie Wonder. I mean, how often do you get to go in at Skywalker or Sony and mix, down a Stevie Wonder song or a Shaka Khan song, or Ghostbusters itself? It's really, really cool experience.
That is, I can, and like you said, Scott, for you, I mean, I can feel the pressure from here. I mean, I would, I'm just thinking myself, like, again, when it's brand new music and new artists and so on, there's maybe some leniency there. There's a little leeway. There's a little give. Not with this. It's very specific. People know what the sound is, right?
Exactly.
Ray knows what the sound is. He knows what the song sounded like, the Shaka Khan songs and so on. He knows. So you're sitting there going, got to get this right. Got to get this right.
If I'm going to tweak something, I better really need to, because he's so tuned in. I remember when he walked in on that mix, Fran, I was like, oh God, I feel the sweat start pouring. Like, I hope he likes it.
Do you have to be here while I'm doing this? Hey, let me throw out some more love for you here. Look, I think I've watched Hired Gun at least 30 times.
All right.
I think I have too. I
can tell you, Ray, I remember a couple of times when we were doing these some of the mixes for Ray's stuff. He's just like, man, that sounds good.
Yeah. Here's another one. Look, moderate master sound of story. Look at that. Just of sound and story. Together, Fran, they are unstoppable. There you go. Look.
Well, I wonder why
That's my life.
Don't count. It don't matter.
Thanks, baby.
It's all good. It's all good. Now I want to watch Mindhunter. There you go. I think we just we did that.
Buckle in for that.
There's a little Billy Joel thrown in there, right?
Yeah. We did Ray's movie. It was funny because Scott had just come off of doing, I don't know how many episodes. How many? 13 episodes of Mindhunter? 10?
Oh, there's 20 episodes, I think.
So I mean, you just came off that, then you did an HBO show with Russell Crowe on. What was that called? The biggest.
That was called The Loudest Voice.
The Loudest Voice.
The uplifting story of Roger Ailes.
Yeah. So those are two, grisly series and a grisly movie about a horrible person.
Yeah.
Probably in the depths of depression, because I know how these things can go. If you're just like wallowing in this dark, ominous thing.
It was refreshing to work on.
Yeah. So when we were filming, you were like, man, thank God, something,
uplifting
and fun, and Ghostbusters.
Yeah. I also did a film called The Social Dilemma, which is on Netflix, and
yes,
that's a pretty That's not nearly as uplifting as Ray's movie, but very important for everybody.
Very important film, though. I enjoyed that. It wasn't. There's no shock in the messaging, by the way, but it was. I know what you mean.
Ray's setting. A director has got some interesting sound design stuff. Is Christopher Nolan? I know you had a hand in Inception. It looked like from your IMDb, but
just as an assistant.
Yeah, but I have not watched Tenet yet. But all I hear is that the dialogue is garbage. Like, you really got to lean in and really pay attention. Whereas I saw Dunkirk in 70 millimeter in the theaters, and it was so well done, and it was very loud. I remember that, but I think he did that on purpose, because all the shots are almost claustrophobic. And when you're sitting there, I mean, I was holding the handles of the movie theater seats, freaking out because these airplanes are just diving at you, and you're right there in the cockpit, like you're there. So it's pretty cool to see how he juggles all that kind of stuff in his mixes, and the shots that he uses to use with those.
Yeah, that is and that's just a testament of how people approach how they want that experience, Fran. Right? Obviously with that kind of intensity of a gunfight in the what do you call it?
Dogfight. Yeah.
Dogfight. Very intense, obviously, with different approach to that. Would that be? Is it? I'm thinking that's something you really have to experience, literally, as you go. For that, Scott, like you can't. That's not something you kind of learn somewhere in a technique. If someone throws that kind of scene or movie piece at you, I'm gonna guess you're gonna have to do a lot of research on that and hear those sounds and kind of dig in like that.
Yeah, I mean, for a film like that, you don't get to that point without a ton of experience. So for a film like that, those guys, they go out, they'll record the planes, they'll put mics on airplanes, they'll go up and record them specifically for it. So depending on the film, if there's budget for that, we'll go out, record the cars, record the planes, do that kind of thing. And that's another director who's very specific about what they want, and nothing is necessarily accidental in those films.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Listen, we've been talking about you at work and talking about how you do it a little bit, and just so everyone knows, I mean, obviously we're not going to be able to break down, 15 to 20 years of expertise in 45 minutes or an hour conversation. But I think Fran, the objective of having these conversations from a director's perspective is fantastic, to have that kind of what we're sharing right now, which is this. I'm more intrigued myself personally with the relationship part of it and how you go about building those kinds of things, and you find that key person like a Scott, and then you build that trust, and then you move forward with project to project. And I just think that that's a big part of this conversation here, is that it technicality is a big part of it. But let's face it, if you could be a great technical sound engineer, but if you can't get along with the guy, I don't know if it's kind of like it being in a band. If you're a guitar player or you're a singer and you guys can't get along, well, I don't know where it goes from there. But I want to see this guy at work. So I know you sent me some pictures, Fran. So I'm going to try to grab a couple of these pictures. Now, I didn't put them in any particular order. I literally just downloaded them right now, so I haven't even seen them. So
I haven't either.
I hope there's nothing in there that you sent me from your phone, Fran.
Oh God.
Just so you know, because I'm thinking, gosh, I didn't even really screen these things, which is actually a very poor editing job right there.
Spiky.
So let's see if we can dig up a couple of these here. Let me just
look at that one.
Let's put these together.
Look at there.
Yeah, let me just see if I can get these better here. Hold on a second. Let me get the pictures nice and big. Here we go. There we go.
So that's Steve Lukather. That was during Hired Gun, obviously. Well, Steve is also in Ray's movie, but that was at Skywalker.
Right. What are we looking at here?
That's my boy Tom Glenkowski. I think you remember him.
Oh yeah.
So Tom Glenkowski was basically just like a little co-producer on Hired Gun, but he was a great help. But he went from there to a Netflix show called 13 Reasons Why, and I talked to him a couple of days ago. And, he did all 4 seasons of that show. And now he is working with the guy that developed that show. And Netflix, gave them a production deal. So now he's working with that. And, they got like a 4-year, 8-figure deal just to develop shows. So I'm so proud of him. Yeah, and he's a great, great guy.
Wow, fan. So this is Fran at home, everyone. Just so you know,
yeah, that's Fran's house.
Hired Gun did well.
This is a library / place where we have lunch. I mean, it's got so many rooms in there. It's a great creative spot. But the library, man, is like 3 stories high. There's like, Tiffany glass is all over the place, and original Norman Rockwell's. And I think a lot of people may know or not, but George Lucas has one of the biggest original movie poster collections in the world. So you see that stuff plastered everywhere, and your mind is blown. Yeah.
Right. So this is Skywalker right here as we're seeing it.
That's what's called the main house, Scott.
The main house. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Wow, fantastic. I think that was cut out. I think we have another shot of that. What exactly is that?
Oh, that's the room we mixed. I guess I have different directors' names for the different rooms. We did Hired Gun in.
Okay. No, that face. There we go. Look at that.
Our boy David.
Hey.
What's funny about this, we're mixing Hired Gun, and David's a dear friend of mine. He's a bass player for Megadeth, and Megadeth was playing in San Francisco that evening, and I'm like, hey man, you ever seen Megadeth before? And Scott's like, no. I was like, you want to go? He's like, sure, I'm down. So I took Scott to his first Megadeth show with 6 tendencies open, and it was a blast. It was
a lot of fun.
Yeah,
that's fantastic. I've never seen him live before either. I mean, I've seen him on TV and stuff, but I've never seen him live. Yeah, that's fantastic.
So there's a view from like the lunch area at Sky. It's just, you can't put it into words, right, Scott? Like, the pictures do it no justice.
It's very beautiful there.
Yeah, very creative atmosphere kind of thing. Yeah, very creative atmosphere.
All right.
That's Todd and Cindy Polson. Todd financed Hired Gun. He was the executive producer on it. And
okay.
The tech building where the sound stages are where we mix.
Oh, okay, fantastic. Yeah, there you go. Putting some names and faces together here.
Yeah.
View from one of the rooms, I'm guessing here.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah, that's.
Now, why are you laughing at that? Why are you laughing
at that? I mean, how many? This is a few years ago, right? This is like 6 years ago, 7 years ago,
5-6 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just haven't seen. I don't think I've seen these pictures. It's funny.
Yeah, that's cool. Wow. Hey, I'm the same boat.
Nice.
That was a great pick. Yeah, fantastic. I see that.
That's kind of like the, you can stay at Skywalker. They have like little lodges.
I just want to add a caveat. You can't stay at Skywalker. You can stay there if you're a client
Yes, if you're a client, you can stay.
So people, nobody call me like, can we stay? No.
Be a client there, but it's outstanding. It's beautiful. It's peaceful, tranquil.
Wow.
And you can't be bothered there. That's the thing,
And there you go. You just talked about that.
Scott, you were here for this, but this is we did an audience test screening of Hired Gun at the original Kerner Optics.
Oh, cool.
Which is the original Lucasfilm.
Right.
Or, Industrial Light and Magic, which was in downtown San Rafael, and in the script, you would have never known. It's just an office building, and they couldn't put Industrial Light and Magic on the building because the fans would go crazy and start storming the place. So it's just called Kerner Optics. But there is where George Lucas developed THX, and we got to screen Hired Gun, the test screening, in that theater, like the original theater.
Wow.
And I thought then my movie would, and this wasn't even mixed, and it sounded phenomenal.
Oh, come on. Really?
Oh man, it sounds ridiculous. Like seriously. But yeah, I mean it's just an old theater, man. But it was
I don't know what this is. You'll have to explain. I didn't see that in Hired Gun, just so you know.
What is that?
They still develop like sci-fi shows there. Like I guess now it's Disney, but they lease out those buildings, and I had a meeting there, and the guy, yeah, try this on, man. We're developing some kind of like superhero movie or something. I don't know.
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh, this looks like fun. Full table of all that. Okay, I see some familiar faces.
Yeah. So this is our big dinner that we had. Scott, I think you were there at Ruth Chris Steakhouse and at South by Southwest.
Yes.
Yeah, we ate some really good steaks and had a wonderful time. That's where we did the world premiere for Hired Gun. We brought in all the cast members that were available. I think there was like 19 of them. Like,
yeah, I see.
Phil X.
I see Phil up there. Yeah, Phil there. I think Rudy's there. I see Liberty there.
Yeah.
I think Kenny's at the top there, is he not? Way up.
Yeah. It was a fantastic time.
Mr. Aronoff. Oh, speaking of devil, there he is. There you go.
A rare picture of Kenny without his sunglasses.
I know. Yeah, he'll love us for that. And him and Liberty. What a great conversation right there.
Well, you can look at the shock on Russell Javer's face. I have no idea what Kenny's he looks puzzled, right? Like, what are you saying?
Yeah. Well, if I'm thinking of Kenny, he's probably right there in the middle of with his finger going. And then John said, "You're fired."
Yeah.
One of those things. I love it. Yeah. There you go. That must have been the premiere. Yeah.
Yeah.
South by Southwest. Got it. Yeah. Right. There you go.
And there's before we even knew we'd be making Who You Gonna Call. This was at the world premiere of Hired Gun. It's such a. I look back now, it's a blessing that Ray came to all these screenings because he's really popular and he brings a lot of people to the theater.
Yeah.
When we went to Australia, man, I brought him with me and we sat right next to each other on the flight, and that's where I came up with the idea for his film.
Wow, fantastic. Well, yeah, I can see how easy it is to have a draw with him.
I have no idea. I think that's got to be a South ago. We got our badges on, but yeah.
There you go. Fantastic. Oh, that's a great shot. I love this shot. This is great.
That's a reaction shot that our photographer we had took during Hired Gun. One of the funniest. I think it was probably during the Jay Graydon taking the dump scene.
Yeah.
Liberty, Kenny Aronoff, Ray, Chris Johnson. I think Phil X next to him.
Yeah, I see all that. That's a great shot. I love that. That's the moment
you live for.
There's the master at work right there. Look at that. Wow.
Yeah. So this is at Sony. This is when we did that 45-minute cut on the Sony lot, which was really cool too, man, to be on that famous lot with all these, that's where they filmed, or Tape Jeopardy and Shark Tank and
wow, all
these iconic shows and movies, giant sets.
So Scott, is that you back? Is that your back to us?
It's the back of my head right there.
I was going to say, so just can you, just for all of us, completely novice to this whole thing here.
You want me to turn around? No.
No. Is this literally your workstation, or is it literally there's multiple stations there that people work, or is that this is your workstation though?
I think I got a bunch of garbage on the console there. Yeah, so I mean, I work at different studios, kind of wherever, depending on the project, where they want to work. So that's what a typical workstation looks like. That's a 2-person S6 console there. So there's two stations there.
Okay.
But I was mixing this by myself.
Got it.
So just me up there at the controls.
Wow, fantastic. I like I said, anyway, I just think you're super skilled to be able to kind of sit there and
There we go. That's the
is.
moment. That's what I was talking about earlier. I'm sweating right there.
Oh, I mean, just look at this. Look at the type of music that we're talking about, Motown.
Yeah.
You got Ray sitting behind, and you're sitting there. I'm by myself.
Yeah.
Gripping the console.
Wow. Seriously though, seriously, was it nerve wracking, or did you? It was just a little. I mean, or did you have fun with it, or were you like sitting there going like, "Wow, I better keep my job here," kind of thing?
No, I was Ray's very disarming, and Fran.
Yeah.
I feel safe with Fran. So.
And really, Ray is one of the coolest dudes on the planet too. I think I can talk to that, but he's just warm, friendly, funny. Doesn't really get in the way. Just
Yeah. No, it must have been just almost like it's an honor to have. He's like, "What's that guy doing?"
What he does.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of emotional scene, man, there it is right there.
There it is right there. Yeah.
Ray's childhood home in Detroit. And Scott worked his magic and pulled some tears, man.
Yeah, that's good stuff. I can't wait. And thank you for allowing me to preview that. I appreciate that. That's awesome. This is basically
Nolan, that's our music supervisor, who's another person I can't do a movie with that. I'm sure we'll get her on one of these, but she's just gold, so easy to work with, is very patient with me because I'm just a pain in the ass that doesn't know how music works, or didn't know back then.
Right.
And at first with how many songs do you think you're gonna? Maybe 8. We licensed over 80 songs. She goes,
Wow.
80? How are you gonna make a music doc with 8 songs? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. What do you mean license? We have to license music?
Right. Hey, Scott, what's your relationship there, Scott? What's your relationship with this person and other people that kind of come in and go, like what Fran needs? I mean, this is a person that licensed the music, but does she work with you in some capacity?
Yeah. So she also does the music editorial. So anytime there's a music edit, she did it. So I think in that moment right there, we're just listening intently to make sure everything sounds good. So she'll take the music, she'll get all the masters and put them all together in time to picture, then hand that off to me, and I'll combine that with everything else.
Got it. And so, Fran, are you sitting there as part of this process as well, or you leave them be and let them do their thing?
Yeah, I let them do their thing. Then later on, they'll they'll marry that music to the picture, and then we'll listen back to it, and that's really about it. Yeah.
Yeah, got it. That's cool.
Process, man. It's just
that's a great shot. I love that. That's a cool shot, man.
Yeah,
that's a resume. That's a resume shot right there, Scott. I think. Right? That's a beauty. I love it. Yeah, I think people are going to be so super fascinated with it. And there's, there's my example of what I'm saying. Like, to sit behind that thing and start figuring stuff out.
Yeah, it was like the first time I was editing. If someone were to put me in front of that, I'd just get nauseous and throw up all over the place. I first started to learn how to edit video. I didn't know what I was doing, man. I got this giant project on this with TVT Records, who was, 9 Inch Nails and, Little John, like huge record label. And it was for a band called Seven Dust. I had no idea what I was doing. This was in 2003. And I only owned a Sony Handycam. That was it. Like, not even a prosumer. We're talking one of these things you buy at Kmart and your little DV tape. The guy was there, and I knew the band really well. And it was with a super producer named Butch Walker. I mean, he does all of Pink, Green Day, like Fall Out Boy, huge. And I'm sitting there just filming my friends, just for memories. And the A&R guy's there. He goes, "Oh, you do video?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, we're looking for somebody to make a bonus DVD to come out with this album that's going to package it like a digipack. Would you be interested?" I'm like, "Sure." He goes, "Well, it seems like the band's cool with you and you could, behind the scenes." I'm like, "Yeah, man." And I called a friend of mine, Jen Rothland, because I had no idea what was going on. And I needed a budget. I was like, teach me how to do this. I don't know what I'm doing. She gave me the budget back. It was like 75 grand. Now today you can't do a music video for 5,000. There's no money. I was like, 75. You want me to ask for 75 grand? She could just do it. Trust me, this is what they're going to give you. So they greenlit it right away.
Wow.
So a prosumer Sony PD-150, which was like the badass camera that you use for these kind of things. Still SD. There was no HD back then.
Right.
I had never even owned a laptop, desktop. I didn't know what a computer was. So I go out and buy the egg-shaped Mac, whatever they were called back then.
iMac.
Oh, yeah.
Just looked like an egg. And I bought Final Cut 2.
There you go.
In there, and it pulls up and it looks like something like that. And immediately got nervous and anxious and didn't know what I was going to do. And a friend suggested I go out and get Final Cut for Dummies. And I did. And that's how I taught myself. So if somebody were to put me in front of that rig right there, man. So I
right.
How long that took you to learn how to do it. I'm sure you didn't do it from For Dummies.
No, I'm gonna guess not. There he is. Look at that. It's just an amazing setup. I mean, it really is.
Now, Scott, if I'm not mistaken, is that the room that you did a lot of years ago?
I spent years of my life in that room right there.
This room.
Which one? This one? They're both the same, are they? This is
that one with the projector, the Christie projector on there. Yeah, that's my padded windowless room that I just stay in.
Does that take a mental toll on you? Something like spending so many hours in there and not.
It's too soon to tell.
Yeah.
That's right. The meds are still working at this point.
Yeah.
They're still working. What's this reference to Fran?
That's the room that Scott spent all those years, and that's that room. Is the Halford. You got to know that Psycho is like one of my all-time favorite movies of all time. So the fact that we got to mix that in the Alfred Hitchcock room is like,
wow, that is really cool. And
the master doing his gig.
So Scott, I'm just curious, again, I keep looking at this and I'm thinking to myself, obviously it's just literally, it's that 10,000, 30,000 hour rule kind of thing. When you were starting out and so on, and maybe even now, do you have mentors that you can call, that you connect with and that you work with? Is there anyone that jumps out at you that says, hey, I have something I need to call that person, or that person acts as a mentor for you now?
Yeah, there's a couple people who have really been, huge in my career in teaching me, but also just being like friendly to me and showing me kind of what they do and being like, you could do this too. One of those people is Laura Hershberg, who is an incredible re-recording mixer. She's actually the first woman to win an Academy Award for sound mixing, which she won for, I think, Inception. Ren Kleiss has also been huge in helping me out. He's David Fincher's sound designer, and he sound designs, anything that he does. So Mank, which recently came out, which is incredible. I don't know if you guys have seen that. Incredible sound job on that one, because it sounds like an old movie when you watch it. It's really, they did a lot of really cool tricks on that one. And then also Matt Wood has been a huge mentor to me. And those are kind of people who, I might not talk to them very often, but it's somebody who I can see ahead of me, who's been doing this career, and I can look to them in times,
Awesome. Yeah. Cause I again, this is not just the reason why I mentioned that is I think we always think that mentorship comes from, sometimes in business. And when I say business, I'm just in Wall Street, Bay Street, that kind of stuff versus the creative process. Man, when you can reach out to somebody that has, like you said, walked that path, have been down there, I can only imagine they're actually hard to find, because it's so specialized. What you do is so specialized at the highest level. To find someone at that level, you talk about Inception, for example. I mean, at that level, to find someone that can mentor you. I mean, it's such an important thing. Fran, I've never asked you that question for you, my friend. Before, just talking about directing. I mean, is there someone right now in your life, like from a directorial perspective, or even in the last couple of years, that sort of has played a mentor role for you? And if you're not comfortable, sometimes I mention that and some people go, well, I don't want to talk about it.
I'm trying to think. I mean, I kind of learned this on my own, so I don't have anybody I can really reach out to. I do have like, DPs that I can reach out to or whatever, just for a certain look that I'm looking for, or
Sure.
I usually try to get just more advice from people in the industry.
Right. Okay.
I don't, I don't know.
Okay. Fair enough. No, fair enough. Listen, I joke about this with people.
Like Scott did, that could show me those kind of ropes, but I really don't.
Yeah. No, I've always said this to when I talk to other business people in general, and of course, you guys are business people as well. I mean, I've never had that in my life, and I think it shows. I mean, you need a mentor. It helps to have one, and I know for me it hasn't passed. So what are we looking at here?
That's walk out of the tech building that we saw earlier, and there's like look at Skyward. They grow their own food. They have Wagyu cows. Wow. You can't imagine it. Organic farm.
Look at this. Holy jumpins. That is amazing. That is amazing. Where is this actually located physically? How far is it from where you guys are kind of living on a day in, day out? Are you anywhere near this?
I was in San Rafael in Nicasio. So maybe it would take me 12 to 13, 14 minutes to get there from my house. But
look at this shot. That's a great shot. Now it looks like Ray playing live. I think with the Stones. Am I not correct?
Yeah. ES-35 Gibson, man.
Wow, look at that. I mean, that's what I mean. Scott, I'm just thinking as a creative person, just you're sitting there, and I guess while you're doing it, it doesn't sit like that. Maybe as you look at that, what do you have memories of that kind of moment and what you were thinking? And
completely disassociated. I don't know. Is that me?
I have no idea what that was. Is that really me?
I got an interesting question for you, Scott. So after you've mixed it, you know what it sounds like, but you're looking at this picture with time code. Nothing's been colored yet. For instance, when we screened Ray's movie right before the pandemic, by the way, the ArcLight.
Right.
When you see a movie that's completely colored, looking beautiful with your mix, and it's in a decent theater. And I remember it sounded really good that evening. Like, what is that like?
Yeah, it's really interesting you bring that up, because a lot of times, sound and color are happening at the same time.
Yeah.
So, on the dub stage, we very rarely, unless we do an executive screening or something at some point, we usually don't see the finished color or finished picture till later, or like when it's out, and it's so if it looks good, it sounds even better, so it's just, if there's something that happens there when you watch it, a kind of lower res file, you watch a really high res picture file, now it sounds even better too. So yeah, it's really great. It's amazing seeing it at the ArcLight, those huge screen, full house.
Yeah.
It's the last time I went to a movie theater.
Yeah, man. Imagine that. So the next day is when they shut down.
Yeah.
The next day after we watched Ray's movie for the first time on a screen, they or at least in LA, they shut everything down. Yeah.
They shut it down. That's where he lives right there. There's another great shot. I love this shot too. That's another part of that
nice.
That really intimate scene you're talking about, I think, Fran, where you shot this on that's some of the
we shot that on film. Yeah,
right.
No video. We shot that on film, which I'm really proud of.
Yeah, fantastic. I love it. And this is another great shot. Look at that.
Yeah.
Boy, that's a great resume, Scott. I can tell you right now. That's
thank you.
That is fantastic. And like I said, just so much respect for that kind of background and your experience, and then now you get to move it forward and so on. I just let's
bring one more thing up.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
people who are professional, and this guy Jay Graydon, remember him, Scott, the guy that did the
of course,
did Peg, Steely Dan Peg song. He did the guitar solo on it. And when we created that scene, we spent thousands of dollars on archives and shooting it. And wouldn't you know that we could not get the publishing cleared or the master. Like they just wouldn't give it to us, Warner Brothers. We couldn't get the vocal master done. For some reason, if we were able to get a re-record of the song, we could use it. So I called up Jay Graydon because I specifically remember him telling me when I interviewed him that, gosh, I wish I could still produce and play, but there's just no money in it. Nobody's doing it. And then I wanted that scene is just so big in Hired Gun. It's such a great story. I called up Jay. I'm like, man, remember you told me you wish you could still play and produce? I'm like, I want to throw this at you. It was a long shot. I'm like, what do you think about re-recording that song to picture like we have it now? Do you think you could pull it off? He goes, fuck yeah, I can pull it off. I'm Jay Graydon. Do you know who I am? I'm like, of course I do. That's what I'm asking. He goes, got any bread? I'm like, yeah, we got some money. He goes, give me 3 days. I'm like, okay.
Wow.
And I remember him doing it and giving it to me. I'm like, gosh, I hope it matches with picture. And I remember us having to go back to Skywalker to put that back in. Do you remember that?
I do.
And we put it in there. And Jay, you got to remember that song's out now, the original song. Jay, I don't think you had to move it 1 frame when you inserted it. It was that precise.
Oh yeah, I remember that exactly. Yeah, he nailed it.
Yeah.
Wow.
And he used the exact same guitar and amps that he used 39 years prior on the original recording.
Wow.
So that was,
That is amazing. That's amazing. Hey, I got to throw up some more love for you guys before we sort of wrap up some of this show here. Look at this. There's one here I wanted to make sure, Fran, you saw, because it basically said, I'm sure you've heard this maybe a lot. So let me just see if I can find it here. It's about, I'm looking for here. Oh, here it is. Yeah, here it is. I wish we'd be blessed with a hired gun too. I don't know.
I'm the wrong guy to talk to about that.
All right. I put up the wrong one. Damn. I put up the wrong one.
I'm very
put up the wrong one. There's a Love Social Dilemma. There we go. A little one there. Huge fan of Ray, of course, back radio days. Yeah, of course, right? I mean, when people hear those songs in this movie, they're going to go, oh, that one. Oh, that one. Oh, that one. It's just one of those movies where you're going, you can't believe.
It was pretty funny. And Scott, I don't even know what your thoughts are on this, but after coming off the success of Hired Gun and I announced that I was doing Ray Parker's movie, a lot of people said, are you crazy? You're going to follow up Hired Gun on a movie about the Ghostbuster guy? But fortunately for me, I knew his story, and I think now you're going to see it on screen here pretty soon, but I don't know. Did you feel that way, Scott?
Well, I think it's a story that a lot of people don't know. A lot of people don't know. They know that he did the Ghostbusters song, and I think it's just an incredible story hearing how he worked with all the great, Bill Withers and Marvin Gaye and all those guys.
Yeah,
right.
And that's why I made the movie. It's like, to me, a documentary is almost like an encyclopedia. It's like you want to get some knowledge out of it and some incredible stories. And I think that we delivered on this one.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to throw this one up here, Fran, and for you as well, Scott. It's great to meet the human beings behind the talent, behind the sounds that evoke the emotion of the film. Wow, that's really cool. I'm still supporting the cinema industry here in Australia. There you go, Anthony.
Right on.
Well said, by the way.
Well said.
True. And I'll add to that, because I normally, when people ask me about that, what makes great video, I always say great audio. And my example is what you suggested to earlier, Scott, when you said when you literally just have the basic video and there's no audio. So I would always say to people, pick out one of your favorite movies or movie scenes, and just again watch your favorite scene on mute, and then do the opposite. Basically, put the sound back on and then close your eyes and see which one moves you. And I most of the time it's the audio part. It's the audio part that does that. So anyway, I appreciate that, Tony. That's a great sentiment to both Fran and to Scott, for sure. Appreciate that. Let's see, here it goes. Look, again, these are people you probably, Scott rocks. Some Kathy knows you. We must know that, right? I love this one. Yeah, me too, by the way, Marilyn. I'm feeling ancient. Yeah, me too. Trust me. I know that. And here's another one. Love your work. Just want to throw that one up here. And here we go. This one as well. So glad to have been part of these great films. Scott and Fran are gems. There you go.
Oh, Thomas
Corcoran, man.
So there's some more sentiment. Hey, let's wind up for everybody here. It is Friday and it's almost happy hour for some of us. So
It's gotta be close now, right?
It's got to close. It's got to close. So I just and Fran, we'll jump to you in a second if you don't mind. But for me, and if you have a question, Fran, of course. I mean, but I just want to throw out to Scott. We just talked about mentorship and how important that is. So, this it might sound a little corny, but I think it's well worth it if you can think about it. It's a strange time right now, and of course, people the business is not running the same. Obviously, the machine's not running the same, and so on. So, do you have any advice right now? Maybe kind of give some insights of your experience right now of getting through this, and for young people that are passionate about sound like you and want to make a career out of it, but I'm guessing right now they're feeling a little overwhelmed and not sure, with the industry the way it is and so on. Do you have any maybe some insights of your own experience that you can share?
I mean, I honestly wish I could say something uplifting right now, but it's honestly a little scary for anyone in the film world.
Okay.
Tom Cruise had a rant the other day. I don't know if you guys heard that.
Yeah, I loved it. So
I'm like, bravo.
Yeah.
Because honestly, we're all feeling kind of freaked out a little bit by this. We know that it's going to come back, but there's a lot of people that work in entertainment that aren't celebrities, and we're not millionaires. We are craftspeople. We're working hard. So when the machine shuts down this much, it really has an effect on everybody. So for people wanting to get into the business, like, keep going, like, don't stop. It's going to happen. But in the short term, it's pretty alarming, you know.
How do you keep positive? I'm just curious what keeps you optimistic. What keeps you hopeful?
I just take it a week at a time. Fran keeps me hopeful.
We're gonna make another movie real soon, don't you?
Yeah.
Really early in on this because this is a big one.
Yeah.
Let me throw this out there. Scott sent me something. I'm sure is it on YouTube now? What you just sent me earlier?
Yeah. It came out last night.
Yeah, so I was having a talk with Scott when I was walking the dog, and I was like, "Hey, what's going on?" He goes, "I'm getting ready to mix this thing with Paul McCartney and Chris Rock." I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Oh, I'm just ready to mix this thing down." I'm like, "Jesus Christ, man! A Beatle, the Beatle,
Yeah.
Hold on a second. I got you. So Scott, are you mixing something literally for Paul McCartney?
Well, this is just he's got a new album out. So we'll just give him a plug because he needs it.
Yes. I think McCartney 3. It's called, right? McCartney 3 or something?
Yeah. And he's got a new album out. So there's an interview that he did with Chris Rock, came out yesterday in support of that. I just clean up the audio for it. Really great interview and totally worth checking out. It's on YouTube. It's Paul McCartney and Chris Rock.
Yeah, and he's right. Yeah, he needs the plug. Wait till the kids hear that on their iPods. They're in their Walkman. Wait till the kids hear that in their Walkman. That guy from sure. Fran, last question for Scott.
No, man, I think he wants to go get a drink.
He wants to go get a drink. Well, let me throw one last one at you then, Fran. Again, you said you got some big project. You got a project coming up that you're really excited about. You got other projects on the table and so on. For sound editors or people on that team in the filmmaking business that want to find someone like you, because it seems like you and Scott obviously have a relationship now, which is going to keep moving forward professionally. What kind of tips and ideas, or maybe just a couple one-liners about building that relationship with you or a director to be part of that team?
You gotta be great and be passionate about what you do, because I don't think that the people at Skywalker Ranch would have accepted Hired Gun or Who You Gonna Call if they weren't good films. I may be mistaken. Maybe they're just doing it for the money, but I can't see that happening because those are world-class facilities. But first is, having a great product, being passionate about it, and working with the right team. If you're not getting along with somebody, to me, that's the most important thing is, can you jive with this person? I think Alice Cooper said it, and Rob Zombie too. It's like, there's only a handful of people that you bring into your world that just click, and I want to keep those people near me because, so that's the advice, man. You got to deliver a great product, a great idea, and it's got to look good. It better sound good because you got nothing if it doesn't sound as good as it looks. and build a great supporting team that elevate you and make you want to do a better job.
Yeah, that's super well said. Well, Scott, listen, my friend, great to meet you. We just met right here on the show, so I'm really super to meet you. And Fran was right about this instinct about bringing people together, the creative process, to talk about it more, because it's one of those worlds that we just don't get inside of. We don't know it. I certainly don't know it. And people that want to understand how to make great films, building great teams, and meeting people like Scott. Scott, you're also on LinkedIn. Everybody, you can connect him that way. I don't know if you have a website or not, Scott, to promote, but if you don't, you can reach out to him on LinkedIn. I found him there, so I don't know if you check that or not, Scott, but go check it, because you never know.
I'll check it out.
There might be some projects there. There might be some projects. Who knows? But it sounds like Fran's got one for you coming right now. So I think it's going to be all good. Yeah. Gentlemen, it was a super pleasure. Fran, we're going to do it again. You take care of yourself. Take care of Bolt. That's fantastic. Scott, good luck with whatever Fran's got coming down the pipe for you. I'm excited for you. So you guys take care of yourself and be safe down there. And everyone else out there, thanks for tuning in. And hey, just be kind out there. How about that? Just be kind out there. We'll see you, everybody.